You see, something is happening right now. I think we are in a strategic point in history, and I'm not sure a lot of people saw it coming. And if I think back on it myself, I'm not sure I did either. You see, men are coming back. They're not just coming back to church, but back to faith, back toward Jesus. See, young men, guys in their 20s and their 30s, men who were told directly or indirectly that faith was soft and that church was for people who couldn't figure out life on their own. See, that believing in God was something that you did when you ran out of any and all other options. But I believe something is shifting. I don't know if it was the chaos of a few years ago. I don't know if it was something that happened sitting in the middle of everything that culture was promising, and then they realized it was all hollow. None of it actually answered any of the questions or any of the thing that keeps you up in the morning. Whatever it was, something pulled. So here you are. Maybe you grew up around church. Maybe somewhere along the way you walked away. Or maybe this is the first time that you've ever wandered anywhere near this kind of conversation. And maybe you've been watching from a distance for a while, curious, but not sure what to do with all of it. Wherever you're coming from, I'm glad you're here. But I need to say something before we go any further. Whatever picture of Jesus you were handed, whether from church or from culture, from a parent or from a previous bad experience, from just kind of piecing it together on your own, there's a real good chance that the picture is incomplete. And let me tell you why that matters. An incomplete Jesus isn't enough to build anything real on. You see, most men who have a problem with Christianity, and I've talked to a lot of them over the years, they don't actually have a problem with Jesus, but they do have a problem with the version that they were handed. That soft, meek, completely unrelatable version, that passive version. The one who never raised his voice, the one who never made a fuss, never made anyone feel uncomfortable, who never asked anything hard of anyone. See, that Jesus, who was basically just nice. And look, I get it, because if that's what you were given, I understand why it didn't stick. And I understand why you possibly kept your distance. But see, that version, just that version, it's not biblical. It's incomplete. Revelation chapter 5, verse 5, one of the elders looks to John, who is weeping because no one in heaven or earth is worthy to open the scroll, and says, "Do not weep, for the Lion of the tribe of Judah has conquered." Did you hear that? A lion. Not a life coach, not a wellness guide, not some motivational TED Talk speaker, not a gentle presence designed to make you feel better about yourself, sprinkling Jesus glitter on everything. A lion. And then this is where it gets really interesting. See, John turns and looks, and what does he see? He sees a lamb, standing though as it had been slain. The same, both, simultaneously, fierce and tender. Fully God, fully man, fully lion, fully lamb. And if I may steal one from John Lovell, fully warrior and fully poet. That tension right there, that's not a contradiction. See, that's the whole point. That's what most men were never properly shown. And I want to introduce you to that Jesus today. Maybe for the first time, perhaps maybe again, but properly this time, because I think you're here for a reason. Hey, before we get any further, and if you're new here, I want to give you something completely free. It's linked on the screen. It is the 3P Field Guide. The link's in the description or on the screen right now. Grab it. It'll be in your inbox before you know it. All right, here's something that I've thought about for a while. How did we get here? How did the church end up presenting a version of Jesus that so many men just could not connect with? I promise you it didn't happen overnight. It was gradual. It was quiet. The kind of shift that you don't notice until you're already long away from where you started. You see, that fierceness, that lion, that started getting sanded down over the years. That authority, those hard confrontations, those moments where Jesus looked at people dead in the eye and told them the truth whether they wanted to hear it or not. What remained was this soft, tender, grace-filled, welcoming, love everyone Jesus. Now, although that is not incorrect, it's just not complete. See, those things are real, and don't hear me wrong. They are true and they're absolutely necessary. But that tenderness without the fierceness, it is not the full picture, not even close. The lion who only lies down isn't a lion. He ends up becoming a rug. You see, Jesus cleared the temple twice. He made a whip with his own hands and drove out the money changers. He looked at Peter, his closest friend, the very man who he said he would build the church on, and said, "Get behind me, Satan." He stood in the front of the religious elite of that day in public with a crowd watching, and he called them whitewashed tombs, clean on the outside but dead on the inside. See, that's not a soft man. That is a man who operated from absolute authority, conviction, and total willingness to pay whatever the price was. So hear me on this. The church didn't lose men because it preached too much grace. I believe the church lost men because it stopped showing Jesus as the lion. And when you only show half of the picture, men don't connect and see themselves, and they fully walk away. Not because they stopped believing in something that was greater than them and they knew, but because they were shown something that just wasn't worth following. Listen to me on this, because I believe the real reason most men drift away from faith or never connect with it in the first place goes far deeper and beyond bad theology. It goes deeper than a watered down Jesus. I believe it's this. No one ever showed them a God worth following into the hard stuff. Think about that. Think about what real life looks like, the grind, the struggle. Really think about it. They were handed a Jesus who validated their feelings but never called them deeper, never called them forward. A Jesus who forgave everything but required nothing. A Jesus who was always available but never really urgent. See, that man, the real man who was wired for something, who feels that pull towards a mission, a purpose, for something worth giving his life to, that man looked for a picture and he felt nothing in that. Not because he had a hard heart or he was turned off to faith, but because he was built for something much more than what was being offered. I use this verse a lot as I talk about relationships because Ephesians 5:25 says, "Husband, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." That last part, he gave himself up for her. That's the thing. It wasn't just his feelings, his comfort, or his preferences. He fully gave of himself. That is not a passive act in the least. That is the most aggressive, intentional, sacrificial thing a human being has ever chosen to do. See, that cross was not weakness. That cross was the most courageous act in the history of humankind. See, a man who knew exactly what awaited him: the arrest, the betrayal, the beatings, the cross, and chose it anyway. For the people he loved, eyes wide open, fully aware, no surprises. That's not weakness. That is a different category of strength that I don't think many of us have ever encountered or could even fathom. So let me ask you this, real talk, and I want you to sit with it honestly. When was the last time your faith actually cost you something? Not minor inconvenienced you, but made you feel like it cost something. If that question had a quick answer to it, man, keep building, brother. You're in the right place. But if you're sitting on that and thinking that, man, really nothing registers, nothing really comes to mind, that's worth paying attention to. Now listen, I'm going to tell you something from my own life, and I promise you this isn't because I have it all figured out, because trust me, I do not. But I think an honest conversation about where some of this lands for me is going to be way more valuable than some polished teaching, right? So for years, I'm talking real years, not a few rough patches here and there, I was genuinely seeking God in the Word, and I was in church faithfully, going through all of the right motions. Everything from the outside looked like I was locked in. But if I'm honest, deep down, I was bored in routine. And not because God is boring, because trust me, He is not, but because I accepted a version of following Jesus that asked really nothing of me that I wasn't already comfortable giving. I was following what felt like a domesticated line. What I found on the other side of that wasn't relief, and it wasn't some warm feeling. It was a weight, in a good way, the kind of weight that means I was carrying something a little bit more real. You see, following Jesus is not safe. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you your ego. It will cost you a version of yourself that you've been carefully protecting and white-knuckling gripping longer than you probably even realized. But let me tell you what this gives you. You see, purpose doesn't disappear when circumstances change. Identity that isn't built on a performance or other people's approval. A real reason to get up in the morning that has nothing to do with how you feel. See, Matthew chapter 16, verses 24 specifically calls out, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. Deny himself. Not look for self-expression, not look for creative outlets to find yourself or to protect yourself. None of those things. It was really about self-denial. That's the call, and that's the hardest thing you will ever do. Boy, because we really love ourselves and we love our comforts. Real strength, I'm talking real strength, is not in the absence of sacrifice. Real strength is the willingness to sacrifice for something far greater than yourself. That's not a watered down Jesus. That is the lion. Now I want to speak directly to the man who's on the edge. Perhaps you do believe and you know that there's something out there, but you're not sure that it's worth the cost. Perhaps you've been watching from a distance, perhaps for years. Now what I won't do is guilt you into a call or into some sort of church program. Although by all means, please plug in and join into a local gathering and pull up shoulder to shoulder with other men as iron sharpens iron. But I'm more interested in calling you into a decision. One step, not the whole staircase, but one step. Will you pursue the Father? And here it is. I present the 3P framework: provide, protect, and pastor. See, most men who find this channel, they've got the first two handled. They're providing, they're protecting, they're putting in the work, and they're showing up. It's that third one. It's that pastor pillar. That's the one that's been silently sitting in the corner, waiting. And underneath all of that provision and protection, there's a question that just won't go away. And most men won't say it out loud, but it is there. Is this all there really is? And the answer is no. There is a version of your life, as a husband, as a father, as a man, that looks nothing like what you've been settling for. And it starts with an accurate picture, first and foremost, of who Jesus actually is. Not this domesticated version, not some therapeutic TED Talk speaker, not someone who's designed to make you feel comfortable. Fully lion and also fully lamb. Fierce enough to flip tables, tender enough to weep at a tomb. Strong enough to carry a cross, and intentional enough to go eyes wide open and choose it anyway. That is the man you were made to follow. And when you follow him fully, really follow him at cost, not just in theory, you become the man your family has been waiting for. You become the man that you've been waiting to be. The 3P Field Guide walks you through all three pillars: provide, protect, and pastor, including how to start building the kind of intentional leadership that actually changes things in your home. It's free. Link is in the description or on the screen. Don't wait. Grab it today. If this hit in the strike zone, if something in here landed, this channel is for you. Not for the views, not for my audience building. No, not at all. But this is for men who are done going through the motions. Men who want to provide, protect, and pastor well. Men who are ready to live with intention, lead with character, and serve with purpose. Subscribe, come back every week, bring your brothers, lock in. Let's do this together, and I will see you on the trail.